Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we're in Regent's Park. It's a nice
Not
day.
in Regent's Park.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's what I usually do, get it wrong.
We're in Russell Square.
We're in
This is where Srila Prabhupada would take his chapel walks, actually. Very holy place. Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 34. The chapter's entitled Creation of the Universal Form.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Right, text 34. All these different social divisions are born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, for unconditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. Purport. Since they are born from different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord in his gigantic form, all living entities in all parts of the entire universe are supposed to be eternal servitors of the Supreme Body. Every part of our own body, such as the mouth, hands, thighs and legs, is meant to render service to the whole. That is their constitutional position. In subhuman life, the living entities are not conscious of this constitutional position. But in the human form of life, they are supposed to know this through the system of the varnas, the social orders. As above mentioned, the Brahmana is the spiritual master of all the orders of society, and thus Brahminical culture, culminating in the transcendental service of the Lord, is the basic principle for purifying the soul.
So anyway, more discussion on the Varnas and ashrams, but specifically focusing on Varnas, really. In conditioned life, the soul is under the impression that he can become the Lord of the universe. Jai Jagannath. And the last point of this misconception is to think oneself the Supreme. The foolish conditioned soul does not take into account that the Supreme cannot be conditioned by Maya or illusion. If the Supreme were to become conditioned by illusion, where would be his supremacy? In that case, Maya or illusion would be the Supreme. Therefore, because the living entities are conditioned, they cannot be the Supreme. Sorry, everyone, just in case you were thinking you were the Supreme. You aren't. We aren't. I'm not. The actual position of the conditioned soul is explained in this verse. All the conditioned souls are impure due to contact with the material energy in three modes of nature. Therefore, it is necessary that they purify themselves under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master who not only is a Brahmana by qualification, but must also be a Vaishnava. The only self-purifying process mentioned herein is to worship the Lord under the recognized method, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master. That is the natural way of purification, and no other method is recommended as bona fide. The other methods of purification may be helpful to come to this stage of life, but ultimately one has to come to this last point before he attains actual perfection. Bhagavad Gita 7:19 confirms this truth as follows. Bahunam janmanam ante gyanavanmam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti samahatma sadurlabhaha. Yes, so the only self-purifying process mentioned herein is to worship the Lord under the recognized method of a bona fide spiritual master. So one has to accept the spiritual master in order to make progress. One has to tadvidi prani patena pari prashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gyanam gyaninas tattvadarshanaha. That one has to be eager to learn the truth, and in order to do that, one has to accept the teacher. And how do we find that teacher? Well, that's a long discussion, which we're going to do a bhakti vision on.
That one's for you, Dawn.
So we'll do one on that. So But the principle is we have to accept a teacher. Just like if we want to learn anything, we have to hear from authority and learn from some authority and make progress in that way. So just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, surrender unto him submissively, render service, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him.
For he has seen the truth.
But, because he has seen the truth. Tattva darshinaha.
Text 35. O Vidura, who can estimate or measure the transcendental time, work and potency of the gigantic form manifested by the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Welcome. The froggish philosophers may go on with their mental speculations on the subject matter of the Virat, the gigantic form exhibited by the Yogamaya internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But factually, no one can measure such a vast exhibition. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text 16, Arjuna, the recognized devotee of the Lord, says, Aneka bahudara bhaktaram netram pashyami tvam sarvato anantarupam nantam na madhyam na punas tavadim pasyami vishve vishvarupa. The English. O my Lord, O gigantic Vishvarup form, O Master of the universe, I see innumerable hands, bodies, mouths and eyes in all directions, and they are all unlimited. I cannot find the end of this manifestation, nor do I see the middle, nor the beginning.
Bhagavad Gita was specifically spoken to Arjuna, and the Vishvarupa was exhibited before him at his request. He was awarded the specific eyes to see the Vishvarupa. Yet, although he was able to see the Lord's innumerable hands and mouths, he was unable to see him completely. Since Arjuna was unable to estimate the length and breadth of the potency of the Lord, who else would be able to do so? One may only indulge in miscalculation, like the frog philosopher. Remember Dr. Frog or Mr. Frog, the frog in the well? The frog philosopher wanted to estimate the length and breadth of the Pacific Ocean by his experience of a well 3 cubic feet large. And thus he began to puff himself up to become as big as the Pacific Ocean. But at last he burst and died by this process. This story is applicable to the mental philosophers who, under the illusion of the Lord's external energy, indulge in estimating the length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. The best path is to become a cool-headed, submissive devotee of the Lord. Try to hear about the Lord from a bona fide spiritual master, and thus serve the Lord in transcendental loving service as suggested in the previous verse. So more or less repetition of what we just said.
Text 36. In spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear from the spiritual master, and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech. For otherwise, my power of speaking would remain unchaste.
That's important point. That the idea is that this is parampara, evam parampara praptam imam vijarshiyo vidu. That we simply repeat what we've heard from our spiritual master, and that makes us perfect. And here, who's speaking? Maitreya Muni is speaking to Vidura, and he's saying basically, if he doesn't do this, if he doesn't just repeat what his guru has said, what his spiritual master has said, then his power of speaking would remain unchaste. What does that mean, unchaste?
Not loyal, not not pure, not aligned to your master, if that makes sense, your Shakta.
Not aligned to your master. Well, actually, the dictionary definition says relating to or engaging in sexual activity, especially of an illicit or extramarital nature.
Right. Okay.
So it means like, it can be used that you're unchaste. You're not. It's extramarital. It's not dedicated to a specific person. It's just like prostitution. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant, so like not loyal, not this is your path, this is our path. Doesn't mean there's no branches on the Chaitanya tree, but this, under the shelter of Prabhupada, this is a path.
Yeah.
So if you start looking over there.
You look over there, and then behind us the sun is rising.
It's going to make you have a halo.
Because you are so chaste, you're like a chaste goddess.
Right. Purport. The purification of the conditioned soul necessitates purification of his consciousness. By the presence of consciousness, the presence of the transcendental soul is verified. And as soon as consciousness leaves the body, the material body is not active. Consciousness is perceived, therefore, by activities. Oh, wow, look at me. It's quite good. The theory put forward by empiric philosophers that consciousness can remain in an inactive state is the proof of their poor fund of knowledge. One should not become unchaste by stopping the activities of pure consciousness. If the activities of pure consciousness are stopped, certainly the conscious living force will be otherwise engaged, because unless engaged, wow, it's like the heavens have opened up on my head. Because unless engaged, the consciousness has no standing. Consciousness cannot be silent even for a moment. When the body does not act, the consciousness acts in the form of dreams. Unconsciousness is artificial. By induced extraneous help, it remains for a limited time. But when the intoxication of the drug is finished, or when one is awake, the consciousness again acts earnestly.
Just wondering if you think we should move the camera or leave it?
No,
It's okay.
it's fine.
Okay.
I look quite good in this light.
Maitreya's statement is that in order to avoid unchaste conscious activities, he was trying to describe the unlimited glories of the Lord, although he did not have the ability to describe them perfectly. This glorification of the Lord is not a product of research, but the result of hearing submissively from the authority of the spiritual master. It is also not possible to repeat all that one has heard from his spiritual master, but one can narrate as far as possible by one's honest endeavor. It does not matter whether the Lord's glories are fully explained or not. One must attempt to engage one's bodily, mental, and verbal activities in the transcendental glorification of the Lord. Otherwise, such activities will remain unchaste and impure. The existence of the conditioned soul can be purified only by the method of engaging mind and speech in the service of the Lord. The Tridandi Sannyasi of the Vaishnava school accepts 3 rods, representing the vow to engage in the service of the Lord with body, mind, and speech. And whereas the Ekadandi Sannyasi takes the vow to become one with the Supreme. Since the Lord is the Absolute, there is no distinction between Him and His glories. The glories of the Lord, as chanted by the Vaishnava Sannyasi, are as substantial as the Lord Himself. Interesting, I'll read that again. The glories of the Lord, as chanted by the Vaishnava Sannyasi, are as substantial as the Lord Himself, and thus, while glorifying the Lord, the devotee becomes one with Him in transcendental interest, although he remains eternally a transcendental servitor. This simultaneously one and different position of the devotee makes him eternally purified, and thus his life becomes a complete success. So the main point, I guess, is that we have to hear from spiritual master, repeat what the spiritual master has said, not adulterated, and the distinction also between an ekadanda sannyasi and a tridanda sannyasi is the ekadanda sannyasi wants to become one with the Lord. That's a Mayavadi sannyasi. And the tridanda is Vaishnava sannyasi, and he dedicates his
Mind, body, and soul.
nope.
Mind, body, and speech.
Yes, mind, body, and words to the service of the Lord. And then Prabhupada's point is that by dedicating mind, body, and words, then what happens is you do become one with the Lord. He uses the term in interest, in transcendental interest. And this is Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, as given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which means simultaneous one and difference. Inconceivably, inconceivable, simultaneous oneness and difference.
Okay, text 37. The highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged, inviting by the greatly learned sages, that the actual purpose of the ear is served just by being near them. Purport. The impersonalists are very much afraid of hearing the activities of the Lord because they think that the happiness derived from the transcendental situation of Brahman is the ultimate goal of life. They think that anyone's activity, even that of the personality of Godhead, is mundane. But the idea of happiness indicated in this verse is different because it relates to the activities of the Supreme Personality who has transcendental qualities. The word guna vadam is significant because the qualities of the Lord in his activities and pastimes are the subject matter for the discussions of devotees. A rishi like Maitreya is certainly not interested in discussing anything pertaining to mundane qualities, yet he says that the highest perfectional stage of transcendental realization is to discuss the Lord's activities. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore concludes that topics regarding the transcendental activities of the Lord are far beyond the transcendental realization of Kaivalya happiness. These transcendental activities of the Lord are so arranged, inviting by the great sages, that simply by hearing of those narrations one becomes perfectly self-realized, and the proper use of the ear and the tongue is also achieved. Srimad Bhagavatam is one of such great literatures, and the highest perfectional stage of life is attained simply by hearing and reciting its contents.
So if you're listening to this, you are achieving the highest perfectional state of life. And by us reciting it, we're also achieving the highest state of life.
Wow.
So simple, actually.
Yeah.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Should we maybe call it there or read one more?
Well, there's 2 verses left, but they're a bit long. So it's up to you if we want to just round it off.
Try to finish the chapter, you mean?
Or round it off means stop.
No, you pick it. You decide. Stop or keep going?
We can stop here and start again. Somewhere else.
Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Prantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. You have to tune in for the last 2 verses of this chapter next time. Okay. So we leave you with a cliffhanger.
Right.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
everyone.